racism is alive and well in churches. And when confronted with that, they have a really hard time dealing with it. I was giving a lesson to a high school group that I've been teaching for 6 years that happened to be 80% female and 80% people of color. And during my talk, integrating the story of the Atlanta shootings, the main leader tried to cut me off, saying that the discussion of the Atlanta shootings was inappropriate in a church setting and was irrelevant. As the leader of the organization, he said, "I've always wondered why you're more loyal to China than the United States." And he said, "As the leader of this organization, I never want you to teach on being Asian again." This leader said I was fired. I was out. Never, ever apologize for any of his racist actions or beliefs. The elders think I've taken this way too seriously. They've told me that I don't know what racism is, that these individuals don't hate Asians. That's their only definition of racism. I know exactly what laws have been broken, but they're not taking it seriously.
It sounds like there's this very big bent on forgiveness and grace, and that's kind of like the end of it. How do you reconcile that with like your personal connection to that person? You could say like, I forgive you. Let's say, for example, the person killed somebody in your family, but it was an accident. You're like, I forgive you, but I still want you to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You killed somebody. Like, where does that kind of sit for you between like your personal faith and your relationship with the person and like your legal obligation to do something for a person? Because I feel like that ties back to a lot of the problems that the church has been seeing, because it seems like a very like internal like situation versus reconciling it with the reality, the legal realities of what you have to do.
So the concept of forgiveness, God commands us to forgive, but the forgiveness isn't for the attacker. The forgiveness is for us as the individual, as the victim, because of bitterness and because of not being able to fulfill our life's work or being stuck. And I know to the church, that's what they feel like the center that I'm coming from, even though when I'm telling them it's not. I have no issue with forgiveness. You have leaders over a children's group. It's no different than if a pastor was having an affair with a congregant at their church. If he repents and comes back to the congregation, you don't let him be a pastor right away. You may never let him be a pastor again. One of the key things about dealing with church matters for anybody who wants to actually know how to deal with it is you should never go alone. So I always was in the presence of at least two pastors or my wife. And my senior pastor, who's now moved on to another church, he actually did say that if this would happen to a Black, brown person or it was a sexual or physical assault, he would have treated it differently. In all of this that we're talking about, these 900 pages that I've had with emails, these conversations, they've never explained themselves. They've only said that I need to have forgiveness and I need to move on. And that they believe these individuals repented. About restitution and repentance, that's for the individual. That is not for me. That is back to, again, their personal relationship by themselves. Forgiveness is extremely important. I want to make that clear, that God commands us to forgive, but it's really meant for our own psyche. Repentance is important for the attacker or for the person who's created the crime. If somebody committed a crime against me, if the individual's repentant, they're supposed to offer restitution. That's not for me to ask. That's for them to give. For me to expect justice and righteousness is completely compatible and consistent with the Bible. So there's nothing mutually exclusive in anything we just said. It's just that to organizations, to forgive is kind of like the get out of free jail card. They just think everything goes away.